In the summer of 2011, Anders Behring Breivik detonated a bomb in Norway's capital city, Oslo. 8 people were killed.
I just saw a really bright light, and I heard in the background some of the doctors said, "Damn, now we lost him."
Breivik then travelled to Utøya Island, where youth members of Norway's Labour Party were attending a summer camp.
I heard some shots ring out. It struck me as a toy gun. You know, my grandfather hunts, so I've heard weapons before, and I just popped my head out of the booth and I saw a young boy lying there in a pool of blood, so I realized, yeah, this is not a toy gun.
When he started to shoot, everybody just ran everywhere in the cabin, screaming and shouting.
And they ran like I've never seen people run before. It wasn't a controlled sprint, it was a crazy panic running with, you know, arms waving about.
I didn't know what to do, and the backside of the island is all cliffs down to the water, and they're high, so you can't jump into the water there. So we were kind of trapped.
I was quite sure that I would be shot, and I remember clenching my muscles and thinking, how will it feel to be shot in the back?
The young people were defenceless against Breivik's bullets. Some swam for survival, some hid in the cabins. Using exclusive footage and hearing testimonies from those who have never before revealed how they stayed alive, this is the survivors' story.
The first thing I remember is a thunder, or what I thought was a thunder. It was reported to be horrible weather that weekend, so we thought, okay, now it's starting. And then we started getting reports in that there had been a bomb in the center.
And suddenly I heard a huge bang. And I just put my hands up to, you know, cover my face.
The offices of Norway's biggest-selling tabloid, VG, were just yards from the centre of the explosion.
Well, I was, you know, sitting on the front desk in my office, sort of minding my own business, and suddenly it's boom. And this 10-story building was shaking and rattling and dancing, and I was kind of thrown off my chair and found myself on the floor.
When we got out of the building, we stepped into a very chaotic situation. There were glass, concrete, injured people. We looked up to this main building in the government district where the Prime Minister has his offices, and the building was totally damaged. All windows were blown out.
Amongst those caught in the blast was a trainee lawyer and keen amateur footballer.
There was blood coming out of my left arm, and my pants, they were almost red, soaked in blood. And I didn't feel any pain at that part. I was only really warm. I just thought, okay, I have to lie down and just yell for help. Then I thought to myself that if no one comes, we're going to die. And a person came up to me and he said, "I don't have a clue of what I'm going to do with you. You look terrible."
Despite being ordered by the police to leave, the journalists decided to work on.
But I thought, you know, this happens once, it doesn't happen twice. So I didn't fear anything. I just feared the extent of it, because I knew that a lot of people had died here because we saw some of the corpses.
8 had died in the explosion. Eivind had shrapnel wounds in his arms and one leg, and his stomach had been torn open by the bomb blast. He had minutes to live. In an ambulance, heavily medicated, he began to hallucinate.
I saw doctors taking things out of my stomach, and I was still awake. And I tried to scream that I need more medication because I'm still awake. And I tried to scream, and there were only really weird noises coming out of my, not words, but, and then I thought, okay, maybe I'm brain damage or something like that. And I wanted to say to them, there's no need to try to operate me. I'm finished. I'm done. I don't want to live a life like this. And I heard in the background, damn, we lost him. And I was lying there in the darkness, and I was convinced that I'm dead now. And I thought to myself that I really wanted to get more of my life, and this is so unfair.
4 operations have followed. Surgeons are still finding shrapnel inside him. As doctors fought to save Eivind's life, the paper caught up in the blast managed to get some news out.
Online we were able to publish the first news flash right outside from the streets. The front page editor, he borrowed a laptop and then just published one sentence. There has been a big explosion in the Oslo city center. We will get back with more information later.
The news was quickly picked up by those on Utøya.
And then suddenly a guy comes into this room and says, "Oh my God, you have to open a Newsnet site." And suddenly, there's this big headline: explosion in Oslo.
First I thought that it was probably a gas explosion or anything, but I showed it to some of the leaders who were sitting next to me, and he said just stay quiet about it. We don't want to make people scared, and we go outside and we try to find out more. But it spread so fast.
No one and no security organization knew that the man responsible for the bomb was now on his way to Utøya. 90 minutes later, he would arrive opposite the island.
Suddenly he fired maybe 5 shots, and all I can remember is that suddenly there was a kid missing from our group.
I knew that every time that phone vibrated, there was someone on the other side who wanted to talk to this boy who was dead.
Utøya sits in Tyrifjorden. Though the island is managed by the Labour Party, its summer camps are about far more than politics.
It's this very idyllic place, just unlike any other. If you look at the names around the island, how you call like that different pathway or that little mountain that's over there. You know, it's the love path, or it's the little mountain of friendship.
It's our paradise. It's like this island is the most beautiful thing on earth, and I still think it is.
This is a place where hundreds of youth every summer come not only to discuss politics and try to change the world, but to be together and have fun. You know, we play football, we play volleyball, people meet, people fall in love, you get friends for the rest of your life.
We stayed in a tent, there was great weather, we swam.
People sitting around bonfires, playing guitars, singing, chatting, laughing. It was turning out to be like every other Utøya event has ever been, I think, which is idyllic.
Many of the 564 young people on Utøya that day will have known people working in the government district in Oslo, so the news reaching the island was particularly shocking.
So I was sitting in this, we call it the media room, and someone just startled and said, you know, people are talking about an explosion in Oslo. We started getting news on the websites and everything, and we started to realize that this was probably quite serious.
The leadership on the island stood on the stage and told everyone about what had happened.
The news about the bomb actually started ticking in when I was doing my speech. So I finished my speech, but I wrapped it up a little bit earlier, and after that there was a gathering for everyone on the island. So everyone came to the main building. The feeling was that, okay, something bad is going on in Oslo, but this is the safest place to be.
We said that first of all, we're just going to stay here. It's the safest place on earth. And we're going to have a barbecue, and we're going to have fun. And I remember that people raising their hands and asked, is there still going to be disco tonight? Is there still going to be the same program? And they said, we don't know yet. So just try to get in touch with everybody in Oslo, and we'll come back later.
Everyone was so shocked. So many people were saying, okay, this happened in Oslo, but we should be glad that we're here and that we're safe.
Lisa Marie Husby was called by her mother, who she reassured, despite harbouring some dark fears.
And when I said I was fine, I could hear all the police cars from our part outside the island going into Oslo. And I remember that, what if anything happens here? Who should help us? And I remember that I was like, had a bad feeling that they left that way. And then my mama says, I think you're the next target. And I was like, oh, what do you mean, I think? And she said, I think this is an attack on the Norwegian government and the Labour Party, and I think that you're next. And I said that nobody can come here, they have to have boats, and it's not like that we let everybody come on the island, and there's security here and everything. And I remember that she said, just be careful.
That security consisted of youthful party volunteers, who might also be called on to man the disco or the boat, the MS Thorbjorn, which is used to ferry people from the mainland. Johannes Dahl Giske was on board, working as the captain's mate.
I got a call on the radio from the mainland saying that there is a police officer who wants to cross onto the island, and could a boat come over.
The bomb and the change in weather meant some youngsters had a change of heart about staying.
When I came on that boat, I met quite a few people who were wet and tired and wanted to go and wanted to leave. Me and one of the delegation leaders from our county spent the most of the boat ride trying to convince them not to leave the island. And when we came across to the mainland, this policeman is suddenly standing there, and he was wearing a kind of like a wetsuit. It looked a bit like a wetsuit with body armor or something on his chest, and a handgun on his thigh, and a very large rifle.
At 5:18 p.m. on July the 22nd, Breivik prepared to board the ferry.
He had this very, very heavy box, black, kind of hard case, which someone helped him to carry onto the boat. He had these iPod headset that I thought was a bit strange, because, you know, this is the heaviest police in Norway. Has to be, you know, they're coming here to protect us. And why are they using iPods? But, you know, I thought, who am I to judge? You know, this could be some top secret, fantastic contraption they use to communicate with each other or something.
In fact, Breivik had planned to listen to loud music to drown out the sounds of any screaming he might hear.
And he said to someone, we have to go now. And on the way, he said that 2 more policemen were arriving. And so when we crossed and everyone left, I stayed on the boat because he had said that there were 2 more on the way. When the captain left, he said, if you leave, you have to lock the boat. We never did that, but now he said, lock the boat because, you know, this is strange, something is happening. And it is while I'm doing this, while I'm trying to lock this boat, that I hear gunshots for the first time.
I stood with my phone in my hand, and then the gunshot came. And I don't remember if I hung up or what I did, but I was standing there and I was just, what's this? And this guy was standing next to me and he said, I think I saw some boys with firecrackers earlier, so it's probably that. And I said, this is such a bad joke if somebody's joking now, because people are terrified.
I heard these shots, and I thought that it was some kind of bad joke, that someone was playing with firecrackers or something, which made me really, really angry. But then they kept going, and suddenly I saw a flock of kids running through the camp.
And I thought someone was making a joke in absolutely terrible taste. So I stormed out, trying to stop what was going on. And I was very lucky that a friend and comrade of mine was standing outside in the hallway, and you know, by the toilet booths there, and he stopped me. And if he hadn't, I'd probably run straight into Breivik.
And I look up, and there's a difference in elevation from where the boat is to where the information house is. There's a little lawn which is flat, and then there's a hill down to where the boat is. And so from my position, I could only see this guy shooting on the ground. And I thought, that's very strange. I thought he was testing his weapon.
I saw 2 girls running up towards the tent camp. And they were shot and killed. It was so weird to see, because we're used to see in movies and such that there's blood splatter and people screaming and all that kind of stuff, but they didn't make a sound. They just fell to the ground and suddenly didn't move.
About 45 teenagers grouped behind Christopher.
So I started to run with all these kids.
Johannes Giske was still moored on the MS Thorbjorn on the other side of the island.
I saw people come to the door of the information house and look down, and just, you know, something happened in their face. And they just turned around and ran through the other side of the information building and ran up the hill. And they ran like I've never seen people run before. It wasn't a controlled sprint, it was a crazy panic running with, you know, arms waving about.
We all started to run towards the forest, which is the backside of the island. And when we all got in there, people were just panicking all over the place. I was also panicking. I didn't know what to do. And the backside of the island is all cliffs down to the water, and they're high, so you can't jump into the water there. So we were kind of trapped.
As Christopher considered how he would help his group escape, Ali Esbarti, who had been in the biggest building on the island, was also on the run.
By that time, when I was sort of turning left to run towards the woods down the slope, I looked back, and then I could see two people lying there, not moving. And while I turned around and kept running with everyone else, I was just processing that info. Okay, something has happened, which is not good at all.
Tore Sinding Bekkedal, at first thinking the gunshots were firecrackers, now knew differently.
My first instinct was to basically try to get out of the building. I would probably have more options if I could, for example, swim to shore or whatever. I was trapped in a corner, of course, and it's an instinct not to be cornered. And I also realized that the doors by the booths were very, very thin wood. You could punch a fist through there, and so I realized that I would not be safe if he came back. So I stormed out after I heard that the shots had gone outside.
And then I saw someone coming down the same slope from another direction, a guy carrying a young girl. And then I saw that she was bloody. I could quite immediately see that she had been shot. This girl, she kept saying that I don't want to die here.
Suddenly there were some shots that went through the trees. We could hear them really, really close. Which made, I think, all of us just snap out of what we were doing. And it suddenly became really clear to me that we had to get away from here really quickly. And I just yelled out to all of them that we have to get away from here. So we're going to run down to the beach and we're going to swim for land.
It was a desperate option. Exposure can kill in the fjords within 30 minutes. The young people faced a half-mile swim to the mainland. All over the island, people were running, looking for somewhere to hide.
I ran into two people from the cafe, and they just pulled me into a nearby toilet, and the staff toilet. And I thought, if I hadn't seen that door before, and I've been there 5 times over 4 years, then a first-time visitor wouldn't see it either. So that's where we went. And plus the door was quite thick. It was a thick wooden door, and it was a proper cylinder lock on it. So I thought, since it it sounded like a very fine calibered pistol, so it probably, I was making guesses.
I was swimming backstroke to try to save some energy and get an overview of what was going on back on land at the same time. And he shot the kids that were still at the point, and then he started to aim for us.
On Utoya Island, Anders Behring Breivik had begun shooting. Helicopter footage filmed during the massacre shows the camp in the grip of panic. There were hundreds he could potentially kill.
When I ran north, I could see that everybody just spread. It was completely chaos.
Lisa Marie Husby was also surrounded by youngsters. They'd travelled from northern Norway. She was their leader.
We were hid from the gunman by the forest. And we stayed there for some minutes because they started to argue with me because they didn't think it was serious. And I just said, okay, maybe it's not serious, but we can run and hide and then we'll laugh about it later if this is not a real dangerous situation.
Within 20 minutes of landing on the island, Breivik had already killed dozens. Those fleeing for their lives simply did not know what they were up against.
The shooting was so continuous. I figured that there couldn't possibly be one man who shot that much. So I figured if there's 3, 4, 5 maybe here shooting, they're going to kill all of us before anyone can even know about this.
We had absolutely no way of knowing that there was only one person there, that there was only one shooter. Other people had said that they could swear they'd seen 2 and so on. So there was no way to be sure.
And then the boatman who drove the ferry came running through the woods, and he had just seen his wife murdered, and he had 2 daughters on the island that he was trying to get in touch with, and he suddenly just came right out of the forest in my face, and he said, have you seen my daughters? And I said, I don't know who your daughters are, I'm sorry, and just asked what's happening, and he said, just get the hell away from here, just run and jump in the ocean and get away.
The captain, as he ran, could not see to the other side of the island, where Johannes Giske was still on the boat.
There was a girl sitting on the dock, and I thought, okay, if they're running that way, maybe she should be running this way. And I shouted to her, and she's kind of, do you want to come onto the boat? And she came on, and she joked, is this a kind of random American policeman that we see in the movies? And we laughed. And after a while, people started arriving on this boat. And amongst them was the captain, who had run across half the island. We were 9 people on that boat. There was no one else in sight. And, we thought, okay, we have to go. This is dangerous. Something is happening. We have no idea what. We don't know how many people are there. We don't know anything. We just have to go.
MS Thorbjorn, with 9 survivors on board, left Utoya Island. It was the only boat which could have ferried those left behind to safety.
And we ran to this cabin in the woods, and I made sure that everybody was inside. A few seconds behind me, this girl came from another part of the island, and she was shot through the arm. And right after she got inside the cabin, we just locked the door.
I realized I would probably be trapped in a corner, and I realized I should just make an escape, make a run for it. So I ran out the hallway, thinking I should maybe run down to the main house or to the shore on one of the sides of the island. But just as I was running out the corridor, some people were coming in from the cafe, some volunteers there. And they stopped me and said, let's go into the staff bathroom. And I'd never seen that door before there, and I'd been there like 4 or 5 times. So I figured, if I've never seen that before, then chances are the first time visitor won't either. So, plus it was a proper hardwood door with a cylinder lock, so there was a measure of safety in that.
In another crowded cabin, Lisa Marie and 50 others did what they could to protect themselves.
We got under a bed just in the back of the cabin and pulled suitcases in front of the bed and just stayed there. So I was very glad because I felt safe under the bed, because it was dark and it was with suitcases and a mattress on top of us and everything.
Breivik was in fact just feet away. Lisa Marie could hear what was going on outside.
Just screaming and gunshots, a lot of gunshots. It was the first time we heard it. It was like 1, 1, 1, and now it was like automatic. It was so many. I think we stopped counting.
Alias Barty had reached the south side of the island.
I was standing next to the water at a place where it was quite flat, and basically waiting for a boat or something like that to come and pick us up. But at that point I suddenly hear some sound behind me. I turn around and I see a guy, rather tall and well-built guy, dressed in something I thought was a guard's uniform. He looked calm. He didn't look like upset or angry or happy or anything. He just you know, doing his job basically. And sort of everything happened very fast at that point. I thought, why on earth would someone with a guard's uniform be here now with a big rifle? He was saying it's the police and it's okay, but he raised his gun. I sort of instinctively turned around and ran alongside the water just to get away. I fell, I got up again, I fell again, I took like one swim. I was quite sure that I would be shot, and I remember sort of clenching my muscles and thinking, how will it feel to be shot in the back?
He didn't know it, but Breivik had decided to leave the shoreline and head back towards the center of the island, where Lisa Marie and her friends were hiding in the cabin.
Then suddenly we heard somebody outside, and he took in the doorknob, and everybody, and we had an agreement that we were going to stay quiet and pretend that we were dead if he got in. But that just went right out the window, because when he started to shoot, everybody just ran everywhere in the cabin, screaming and shouting and knocking over sofas and tables and everything. So it was chaos inside, and I was just under the bed, but I thought, oh my God, he's going to get in. He can hear that so many people are inside. So he shot 2 times through the window of the door, and it's a huge window in the door. I didn't remember it before I saw it now, but it's a very huge window, so he could just put his hand in and open the door. But he left. But it was a minute there I thought, okay, he's inside. I know he's inside because everything got so quiet. But he just left. And it's a miracle because we were almost 50 people inside.
Christopher Newborg, still shepherding young people away from Breivik, had reached a point of no return. Unable to shelter in the woods, only water stretched before him.
At this point, we're almost as close as we can get to land. So I yelled out to everybody that they should take their clothes off and get into the water and start swimming. 20 of them just did it automatically. Some, though, didn't. Some were feeling that the distance was too long, the water was too cold, some couldn't swim at all. And also someone wanted to stay with the people who didn't want to go. And I begged them to come with us, but they refused. So at one point I didn't have a choice. I had to go with all the people that I've just got into the water. The water was cold and it was rainy and windy, and everybody was panicking. Some were getting cramps already. We weren't even halfway over. I figured that if I do backstroke, it's more not relaxing, but I don't use quite as much energy doing it. And I could also get an overview of what was happening with the kids that were back on land. And about that time I was maybe 150 meters out when I saw a policeman coming down towards the point. But he looked like a policeman. He had police uniform on. The weird thing though is that he had this rifle with him, and it didn't look like something a policeman would have. Just as I'd figured out that, he took up his rifle and he shot the kids that didn't want to swim. Because at the point there was no place to hide at all, it was all open.
It was Anders Breivik, who was dressed as a policeman, killing the children one by one.
And when he had killed the last one, he saw us in the water, and he started to shoot towards us also.
As Anders Behring Breivik hunted for victims on Utoya, a boat carrying 9 who had escaped was nearing the mainland. But that was no guarantee of safety.
We all laid down in the deck inside the cabin. And we thought we would just go straight across to the mainland. But then someone, and I think it was me, remembered that we saw this. Well, this guy said that 2 more policemen were on their way. And if this policeman is killing people, then those policemen would probably also be killing people.
So those on the boat decided to head into open water. Swimming, Christopher Newborg, still unaware who was killing his friends, feared the worst when he saw it.
Our main boat was out on the water, but we couldn't see which direction it was heading because it was moving really slow. So we were afraid that it was moving towards us, and it was filled with soldiers or something. It was going to come to kill us. So all the time swimming from the island to land, I thought that we're going to die at any moment. Someone's going to come at any moment and shoot us all the way over.
You could hear every shot. It was a very, very frustrating feeling.
I took the mobile phone, and it was quite new. And so when his mother called, I could see a picture of her, because it was integrated with Facebook. And I saw this middle-aged, beautiful woman full of life, smiling. And I knew that she was experiencing the worst day of her life, and that it would be worse because she would never see her son again.
In the water, Christopher Newborg was swimming with a group of children. The youngest was just 14.
I saw him pointing his rifle at me, at us, and I thought that I'm not going to watch him shoot me, so I'm going to turn around and swim normally again. And if I die, I hope I die quickly. And he fired some shots. I tried to keep my head low, so I was a bit underwater. But suddenly there was a kid missing from our group. I didn't know where he went. But we were suddenly one less. All these thoughts were going through my head. But at the same time, I had all these kids around me who were also panicking, but I couldn't panic in front of them, because if I did, who was going to give them hope at all? So I just tried to keep brave and be brave.
90 minutes after Breivik had arrived on the island, he called police to surrender.
Ja, god aften. Kommandør Anders Behring Geivik i den norske antikommunistiske motstandsbevegelsen. Jeg er på Utøya for øyeblikket. Jeg ønsker å overgi meg. Okay.
With a team of armed marksmen still 20 minutes away, Breivik ended the phone call and continued to kill, claiming 20 more victims. Ali Asbati had come to a point in a path where he and another of Breivik's targets split up.
He went right, I went left. I know that he shot several people there. There were 5 or so people that were killed at that point, basically, and those were the last ones that he managed to kill. Of course, I think a lot about it, and the people who lost their lives there, it's just feels really strange and unfair.
Emergency response teams plucked frozen survivors from the water and placed them into thermal bags. After Breivik had finally given himself up, police went from cabin to cabin. Lisa Marie Husby and those with her were kept for 90 minutes before it was considered safe for them to leave.
Then they finally said, now you can leave, but you have to look to the ground the entire time. Don't look around you. Hands in the air and run everything you can down to the boats. Don't get out of line and don't take your hands down. And I didn't realize then why we have to look to the ground when we run, but I realized it when we got into the woods. Because there were, I think we saw 3 bodies on the way.
Tore Sinding Bekkerdal had stayed behind a hardwood door in a staff bathroom throughout the shooting spree. When he stepped outside, the sight was a gruesome one.
There were many bodies on the floor, some of whom I recognized, some who were still alive. There was an awful amount of blood everywhere. There was, in the minor conference hall, there were about 10 bodies or something in one corner, just stacked upon each other. Some of them were still alive and moving. It was just, to me, it was this amorphous blob of people.
Christopher Newborg reached the mainland, having seen one of the group he had led to safety, almost certainly killed.
I was just acting on instinct, in a sense, kind of being the leader of the group, making sure that everybody was all right, that no one was physically hurt. I don't feel like a hero at all. Okay, I helped some people get away from there, but I don't know.
The 2012 AUF summer camp was cancelled, but for those who survived, the island remains a place of beauty and what they believe is a paradise.
Some terrible events happened there, but we have to go back and take it back at some point because we still have to go back and play football and volleyball and save the world from that island, because it's a very, very nice place.
It's a place where 69 people were killed. The youngest was 14. The average age of Breivik's victims was 19. Each of the survivors has a different view of the long-term effects of his attack.
I have a very difficult time writing him off as a single case, and I believe that something like this will happen again. Maybe not on the same scale, but I do believe it, because we're not taking it seriously, and that frightens me.
He created a new fear in the Norwegian people. He definitely did. And I think that this is going to change our country forever.
A total stranger came up to me and just gave me a hug, because she has seen me on TV, and that shows a lot. Yeah, we're together in this, and we're more open in everything. Yeah.
When he started his explanation of why he did this and everything, I just thought, I feel sorry for him. And I know that it sounds weird, but I think that we are so many people standing together, and it must be so lonely in his world. Imagine he has nobody now. He's going to be alone for the rest of his life. And we are hundreds of thousands that stands together and believe in our cause, and we have each other.